Good morning, everybody, and welcome. I think we'll start off. I hope your sun is shining where you are. I like it nice and hot myself, so it's really good. I'm enjoying it. And yeah, welcome to yet another session with us. Very nice for the people who are able to join us on Sunday as we're celebrating yourself and ourselves for the change that we continue to be. And I think within the same theme, we're going to be continuing with the same topic of celebrating oneself and celebrating others while building resilience. As we have it there, it just means um, celebrating oneself. Yourself means taking the time to be genuinely grateful for your life. And the more you do so, the more you gain in confidence. In this, you're effectively telling yourself and the world that you're unstoppable. This in turn attracts more positive energy into your life, which also inspires you more and others to become confident and positive in life. And all this is important in our well-being. Sorry, I'm just gonna. Can you still see my screen? Okay. Yeah. I think self-celebration is just a conscious acknowledgement of your accomplishments, be it large or small. And it's actually an acceptance of where you are at the present moment, not where you would have been, what you would have done. It's just where are you at this time? Are you able to celebrate yourself for what you've done at this particular time? And it means giving yourself the gift of self-love as well as cheering yourself on. Celebrating oneself and others boosts your well-being. I mean, you can all agree, like the cartoon character there. Some people just make you feel better when you're around them. You know, there's sunshine for your soul and medicine for your mind. And you can all agree it feels really nice when you have a nice cup of tea with a friend or you meet into a group of people and you come out of that feeling, energetic and very full of life. And there's nothing as nice as that. So, but I think it all stems out from us being able to celebrate ourselves. It comes from you, then for you to be able to radiate that onto other people. And that's important for us to be able to do that. On here, we have a picture of a lady who's multitasking. I think she's, washing one child, another one's asleep on her back. She's cooking, trying to dig, maybe grinding some maize or cassava to make pounded yam, maybe James. She's cooking, maybe some ugali, washing as well, and also caring for somebody who's ill. And, and I bet some of us can attribute, it doesn't have to be this specific thing, but sometimes you have to juggle so many things. You have to sacrifice, you have to be selfless, you have to be caring and hardworking. And all those things are good. They're good. And they equate to either can be mother, it can be father, it can be sister, it can be sibling, it can be brother, anybody can be in that situation. But do you take time to just pause and reflect, and say, I've done well, I've cared for people, I've cooked, I've done this. Does this picture look familiar that you're stretched in so many ways? And do you take time to just pause and reflect, which is the important bit we're talking about here. Again, the question is, how well do we celebrate ourselves and others? In life is messy, but it's beautiful and always should be celebrated, be small or big things. It should be celebrated. When's the last time you actually stopped to celebrate yourself, your accomplishment, big or small? So on here, we've got, in life, you realize there's a role for everyone you meet. Some will test you, some will use you, some will love you, some will teach you. But the ones who are truly important are the ones who bring out the best in you. And Pythagoras did say, meaningful silence is better than meaningless words. So what do you need to do for self-celebration? I mean, we have to be realistic. We don't actually celebrate ourselves as much as we should do. It's not something that feels natural sometimes because we're taught to be modest and to keep ourselves small and maybe sometimes also make the needs of others before ours. But to be able to celebrate ourselves, we don't need anything much. Anyone can practice self-celebration. And these are some of the things I just collected to show that what you need to do. So you need some self-love, and self-love and self-celebration go hand in hand. And then that breeds in self-compassion, self-confidence, celebrate that the fact that you're worth it, you're enough. And at the present moment, simply that you woke up today is reason enough to celebrate and say, thank you. I also equate it to a bit of gratitude sometimes, as you celebrate yourself, you're giving, you're being grateful. Mindfulness in your daily life, because awareness is the root of growth and change. Listen to yourself, know yourself. Be mindful in the day, take 5 minutes. I think there was once I went for a workshop when we were doing, in any 1 hour or 2 hours, you should take a few minutes to reflect and think, how am I feeling? Has something upset me? Has something made me happy? Just to keep a traffic of what's happening in your thoughts so that you keep being aware of what's going on in your body. Am I tired? Do I need a glass of water? It's hot at the moment. You can be on your desk sitting and you've not had water and you need to have like 2 liters of water in a day. Have you done that? And also the courage. Because sometimes when you say you're going to self-celebrate, you might think, oh no, what are people going to think about what I'm doing? I'm not supposed to be doing that. I'm not supposed to be showcasing my accomplishments to people. But it's important because I think once we're able to celebrate ourselves and model that behavior, then other people might also be able to copy and eliminate and share in what we're doing. So that's just a bit of introduction to our session for today. So if you're new, welcome. What we normally do is at this point, we normally take some polls just to encourage people to have a conversation about what they think about this topic for today. So I'm going to try to launch polls, but if anybody wants to say anything about the topic for today before I do that, you can do that by raising your hand, or you can use the icons at the bottom. Alternatively, you can just wave on the screen. I'll be able to see you. Yeah, so let me bring this up and I'll launch it. Are we able to see that? Thank you. And I'll get Kasia to take us through the poll questions.
Okay, yeah. Hopefully everyone can hear me. So the first question on the poll is, how often do you celebrate yourself? And the 3 options are never, sometimes, and always. Second question is, how often do you celebrate others? The same goes for here. We've got never, sometimes, and always. And lastly, do you think you should celebrate yourself more than you currently are? And the options for this are yes, no, and not sure. So I'll just give you 2.5 minutes. We're nearly 1 minute through to let you think and put your answers through. Okay, right. So yeah, we can end the polls now. And yeah, hopefully you should see the results on here. I was trying to track as he went along, and I think all the results are so interesting. But let's go through the first question. So how often do you celebrate yourself? 71% of you said sometimes. I just skipped never because no one said never. 70% of you said sometimes, and basically 30% of you said always. So would anyone like to speak why they've made the choice that they did?
I put always, because I definitely do it a lot more now than I used to. And because I appreciate the small things as well, it's more of a reason to celebrate.
Love that. Lovely. Thank you. I'm sure as we'll go through today's conversations, we'll kind of identify reasons why that's important, why everyone should, if they selected sometimes, why it's important for that to become the always. Anne, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. This is a very interesting conversation. Yeah, I would say that I haven't been celebrating myself for the longest that I know. And it feels like I'm in a season of awakening, which feels like I've just come from a big sleep all around. I've lived for others. I've celebrated my children, I've celebrated other people, but it's only now that I'm in a season where I'm learning how important it is to celebrate myself. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. I think that's such an important point. Me not being a parent myself, but I do recognize that parents do a lot and sacrifice a lot of their own time, and they don't have the time to celebrate themselves until a bit later down the line. So thank you for that, Anne. Would anyone else like to add to this point?
Hello, Grace.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we do celebrate birthdays and and passing our exams, but the others in between, we don't recognize them as achievements. So we don't celebrate, either we are shy or we are being modest or something else. It's, how we view them really. We want to be modest, we don't, value whatever it is, and then we don't celebrate them. We should be celebrating them. I think it's lack of knowledge, really. Because, birthdays, we make noise about it. We cook, we have parties, we do all sorts. But, and when you pass exams too, yes, but in between, the little things, we don't value them. We don't think we should make noise about. Either we are shy or we want to be modest or whatever. We don't recognize them, that the achievements we need to celebrate. I think that's how I feel. Yes. I can't hear you, Eva.
We just swapped because we're in the same room, so we have to choreograph how we unmute ourselves.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, guys. Eva, did you want to say something? Oh, okay. Amika, would you like to add something?
Hello?
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
Well, in terms of celebrating oneself, I feel a lot of it has to do with insecurities.
Oh, okay.
Insecurities in the sense of, I don't think I've accomplished much for myself. I would know a lot about that myself because Easter break, I went back home to Nigeria to go and visit. I saw a childhood friend of mine. I met her because we hadn't seen each other in like years. It was good to catch up with him and everything, but he's living, I can see he's doing very well for himself. He has a nice job. He has a very well-respected job and everything. We used to chat and we were very close as childhood friends, but for some weird reason, it was, though we met up, he invited me over to his place and we had good laughs, but for some weird reason, there was that sense of insecurity on my part. That, wow, he's really doing well for himself. What do I have to show for it? So it kind of, on some level, I can understand, I can relate to what Grace is saying on a deeper level.
Yeah, thank you for that, Amika. To me, that what you're also saying, I feel like a lot of people experience this. Probably everyone experiences this this negative self-talk that happens in our heads all the time. I think there's a statistic or something that said that, like, I think we 90% of the time we spent negatively talking to ourselves, and then the 10% is the positive self-talk, which is just strange and bizarre to acknowledge the fact that, like, so yeah, I think insecurities would count towards that, and could be a reason why you don't see the reasons why you need to celebrate yourself. So yeah, thank you so much, Emeka. If does anyone else have anything to add? Eva, yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking about what Emeka and everybody else was saying as well. I think social media also has a big part to play in that. I think when you compare and see, oh, these are lovely photos of, somebody's doing that, so you think, oh, my accomplishment is too small, I don't want to post it, or I don't want to celebrate it. You're always comparing. That brings in the inferiority. And I think, yeah, I was just looking at this topic today, and I was thinking, how often do you celebrate yourself? I feel like sometimes also, if you're in the work environment, you could be project after project after project, like you don't actually sit down to reflect back on what you've achieved. And as Grace said, it should be small things. Birthdays we shout about, but the little things we forget, and that's what we should be taking a break to say, hey, and somebody was saying, maybe do something like when you have a special cup of tea, you're celebrating yourself, something to mark that occasion. I think I was talking to Kasia earlier, and I was saying, I think also for you to get to the point that you're celebrating yourself, you have to be very actively also maybe journaling or reflecting back. You have to have that reflecting pose, because otherwise then you just keep running with life and what's happening. And like we was young children, you keep running 24/7. Yeah, but it's good to take out that time to reflect so that you're able then to see what you've accomplished and celebrate. So for me, I would say, how often do I celebrate myself? Not as much, but I do it sometimes. I think there's room for improvement. Back to you, Asha.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Thank you, Eva. Yeah. I feel like there's small and big ways in which we can celebrate ourselves, and we might have the tendency to think that I can only celebrate it, only like the big things count towards celebrating ourselves, and maybe sometimes it's something as small as a really like a special cup of tea and like 5 minutes of a break or something. That could be a good celebration as well. Yeah. So I'm just going to move on to the second question, which is really interesting when you look at the first and the second in comparison, because the second question asks, how often do you celebrate others? And it's almost a reverse. It's the exact reverse of what we've seen in the first question. So we've had no one said never, and 30% of you said sometimes, and 70% of you said always. So it looks like we tend to celebrate others more than we celebrate ourselves. And I was wondering if anyone would like to contribute or comment on what we're seeing here.
Yeah, it's easy to do, isn't it? Someone does something, you tell them great, and we do it with like advice as well. We always give good advice to everyone else, but aren't necessarily so great at taking it for ourselves. But yeah, it's funny how, as well, you appreciate people's wins and encourage them to help them to feel good. So it seems strange that you wouldn't want to do the same for yourself, even though I understand the process of not doing that.
Yeah, it almost feels easier to I feel like, because the other person is like a physical thing outside of your body, you can see them, you can acknowledge their their presence, them being there for themselves, or accomplishing something, or doing something for yourself. And it's almost like you can direct your positive celebrations towards that because it's something very physical. Whereas when you think about yourself, I feel like a lot of the time you don't think about yourself as a physical presence. It's more like in your head. You are in your head, and it's not so easy to direct anything towards that because it doesn't feel real. But
yeah,
exactly.
And I guess the process of it as well is like, you know, it's easy for me to put my hand out and say, oh, well done, that's great. But you wouldn't necessarily look at yourself in the mirror and go, well done.
Yeah.
Great. But actually, when you're thinking, oh, yes, I can't believe I've done it, that obviously back then, that's your win, that's your time, that's your moment to celebrate. So, yeah.
And what you just said about the mirror, that's like a common, maybe not commonly engaged with activity, but like I feel like a lot of us have heard about this thing where people stand in front of the mirror like with a pose, with like a power pose, and tell themselves like empowering words. But when we hear about it, it might sound a bit like cringe, or like when we first start doing it, it might be a bit cringy or like very uncomfortable. But yeah, it's something very important to do, I think.
Yeah, and as well, not everyone looks in the mirror, so then that brings another thing to it. Like I have this thing where I don't like to look in the mirror because of my scars and stuff like that. But yeah, you're right.
Thank you for that.
I think, can I say something?
Yes, of course, Grace.
I think perhaps we set our goals very high. We want to achieve something higher than where we are. So we don't get satisfied with, where we are. Our expectations are too high, You want to take a picture and you thought, oh, I don't look good in pictures. So you don't want somebody. And yet when it comes later, you look at it, oh, I look good, really. But I don't know whether it's, we want to demean ourselves, or I don't know, as you said, negative is what, 90%, and positive is 20%. Whether we are seeking sympathy from the other person, I don't know. We tend to know ourselves more than we should. We should say, oh, I'm photogenic, and then go ahead and take the picture. But we rather go for the negative. Yeah,
and it feels like, you were saying about those expectations, it feels like no matter what you do, they just keep getting higher and higher.
Yeah.
Like you're actually like accomplishing what you want, but you're not realizing it because you're just focusing on like next and next and next.
That's right. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
James, would you like to add anything to that?
Oh, yes, I think basically there's been a lot of discussions around this whole thing as well in terms of what you guys have said. There's a lady called Deborah Smith. She's been really working on how to grow your happiness. And there are fundamental principles she brought up. One is the genetic factor of things, and also the intentional things that we do, like what you've all mentioned about how we focus on the 80% and then, we focus on the 20% and not the 80%. I'm coming from a different perspective on this. Sometimes we achieve something and we are supposed to achieve maybe 100% and we get 80%, and the focus is placed on the 20%, not the 80%. That's how I'm coming with this. The negative thoughts that Liana talk about is actually around the 90%, and then we focus on the 10%. So it's really the reverse. This is about achievement. So there was, I just want to share this story. A lady who was dumped and became very sad and went in search of somebody to love her. She entered a pub full of men, about 10 men, apparently, according to the story. And they all really kind of looked at her immediately she entered. And there was one guy who was right in the corner who wasn't really paying attention to her. And she really focused on that gentleman and forgot to really look at all these guys who were like, wow, how beautiful is this lady? He's just entered the pub. And she really kind of penetrated in between the nine and then was focused on this one guy who didn't really put his head up to look at her. So that's some of the things that we normally do. Maybe subconsciously these things do happen. But according to Deborah Smith, she was actually saying that 50% of this really is coming from our gene. How often do we celebrate kids' achievement? Not bad days, because bad days are just days that years that turn around. This is very common, it's very unique, and kids like to go to bad days, they like people to come to their bad day, but achievement is different from that. How many times do we as parents also celebrate our own achievement? Because we seem to be quite modest. Maybe we full of guilt. If we do this, this will happen. So that's what this lady was saying. Maybe there's a 50% chance that your gene is responsible. So we need to look at how do we educate and grow happiness from our own homes and also in our communities. I've had a lot of people being very envious because somebody in their community has achieved something. Instead of celebrating it, so you dampen that emotion down because you're not really happy for the person. You become envious, and then they don't think that celebrating is okay. Maybe by not celebrating, people will not hate me or they will not envy me. So that's one aspect. The other aspect really she came up is 40% really is the intentional thing that we have. Is the celebration coming from inside or is it prompted by somebody outside? Has somebody told you to celebrate it? Or if somebody don't validate you, do you validate yourself? And again, these things also can be part of our core beliefs. And that is where self-esteem and confidence can come into play. Even what Emeka was saying, because the confidence he had when he met his friend in Nigeria with a good job dropped immediately because there was an external factor to that confidence. Oh, he's got a good job, he's respectable. I don't have a good job, even though he's respectable in our community here. He totally forgot that. So the last bit is the 10% is circumstances, this history we go through, the things that we do. And so this lady really came up with some of these things and they really match up with what you guys have been saying, really. So we need to look into ourselves. How often do we validate ourselves? Or are we constantly looking outside for validation? You know, if you do something, you want somebody to say, thank you, please, which is okay, it's conventional. But can you say thank you to yourself? And when Kasia was talking about the looking glass thing, there's also a work done by Sigmund Freud. He brought up the looking glass theory. And we do that all the time. We check on community, a friend, a family. If we dress, we need to check, or the media. These are all our looking glasses today. It's not just in our dressing room, it's out there in the community. You watch, is my shoes okay? Is it matching okay? I'm going to the conference. How will I appear? How will they see me? And why do we bother about that? Bother about how do you see yourself? Are you presentable? Do you like your clothes? Are you comfortable in it? So I just want to add that bit. But these are some of the fundamental parts and needs that we really need to address.
Thank you, James. Thank you, James. So much to think about. Wow. Thank you. Emeka, you've got your hand raised.
Hello. Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback on what Mr. James talked about in terms of validation. In terms of seeking validation, it is quite natural to seek validation from people because there's that sense of kind of like being recognized for what you've done as a person in terms of your accomplishments. But on the other hand, though, what I've come to realize is that we all have insecurities. But it's how we see beneath our flaws that defines our characters as individuals. Because it makes us human. Insecurities make us human. I mean, anybody that tells me they have no insecurities, they are lying. that would have come to realize. So it's quite natural to seek validation from people, but at some point in life, you have to know your worth as a person.
Nyasha, would you like to add to
that? Yeah, just to say, so like the self-worth, recognizing that is really, really important, because so for me now, I'm at that point, the thank yous and the welcoming that I got from everybody here on Sunday, rather than it feeling like a validation, it was more something to be grateful for, because it was I can't think of the word. I was going to say it was adding to myself, but it's not adding to, but it's like, I don't know, it's something to be grateful for rather than something to feed off of. Because then obviously once you start feeding off of things, constantly looking for validation, like today, I haven't had the same greeting here today as what I had on Sunday, but it would be wrong of me to expect that, because it's a different group, different set of circumstances. Sunday's over now. But when you're stuck in that seeking validation process, then that would be disheartening. So like valuing your self-worth is really, really important. And once you're blessed enough to get there, anything that would have been considered validation it feels a lot better when you get it. I hope that made sense. I felt like I kind of just like
I think so. It sounds like you know, in an ideal world, we'd all take our, how do I want to word it, be happy from within, like in all the internal work that we can be doing. We would be the source of our own happiness and validation. And I feel like at some point when that starts getting stronger, if you're doing a lot of self-work, I feel like you can experience external situations which bring you like comfort or some happiness, but it's not exactly, it's really hard to put down. Like, it's not validation, but it's this like great inner feeling where you're feeling like supported and held by people, because you've kind of, in a way, you have placed yourself in this group of people, and you've put the work to like come to conversations and be part of this community. And I think maybe there comes a point where you can see how much you've done to have this group of people in a way. I don't know if that makes sense, but like,
yeah, it does. Yeah,
it's like you took control of that happiness, and now you're kind of like reaping the fruit. Yeah,
embracing it. Yeah, so Sunday was more of an experience that I could embrace rather than look at from an outside perspective. It felt like a whole, because I felt whole.
Yeah. I had a similar feeling. It was such a good feeling. It was such a good feeling. Eve, I'm going to pass the mic over to you.
Yeah, I was just going to say about a quote that I saw one time, and it's, we see the world as we are. So like, it's literally a reflection of whatever you're saying is almost a reflection of what's going on. And that also then allows us to perceive things differently. You know, I like this book, Who Moved My Cheese? If you've ever read that book, it's a very good book. If you read it in different circumstances, what you're facing, it means totally different, and you apply it very, very differently. But it's just a good reflection of whatever others are perceiving to us, actually it's what is inside us. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good conversation. It's such an important one today, and it ties in so well with if you joined us on Sunday for the conference. It's just such a good link with that. If there's anyone that have anything else to add, because if not, I'm going to move on to the next question. No? Okay. So the last question was, do you think you should celebrate yourself more than you currently are? And we had 71% of you said yes. And then 14% said no, and 14% said not sure. So would anyone would like to begin this conversation? It kind of feeds into what we were already talking about. So it's just another good excuse to have a conversation about this.
Not sure, and I sound like I'm going to contradict everything I've just said. Because also, as well, like, so not to take away from anything I've said, but also I didn't realise that I was having such an impact to people, like, until I met everybody on Sunday and everyone said, you know, how good it was to meet me and stuff like that, and that they'd learned a lot and things like that. So maybe there are parts of myself that I could celebrate more, that maybe I'm not really seeing enough or validating enough. Yeah,
that's fair. Just trying to, it might be hard to because you might not be aware of everything at once, right? So yeah, I'm just trying to comprehend the question again with
so even though I'm already recognizing and celebrating a lot within myself, maybe there it feels like a lot, but maybe there is still more. And can you ever go too far with celebrating yourself, I suppose?
That's interesting. Would anyone like to add to that, to what Nyasha just said?
I think for me, really, we'll be looking at opportunities that we have. For example, what happened on Sunday. Yeah, we can focus on the invitation, which actually we classify us as part of the community, and also recognition by Utilivu women and everybody that came to that conference. And that could also begin to really generate or activate your self-esteem and confidence as well. But like I was talking about some of the work people have done, they were talking about wisdom and courage, or wisdom and knowledge. So how much do you know about the wisdom you have or the knowledge you have? Maybe we don't even sit down to assess some of these things, because that could really make you, like what Nyasha was saying, that can really make you reach to the utmost level you want to reach. And I don't think there's any limit in what we can really achieve, even if you have any illness. We saw that lady who had it was a bowel cancer, that she was all over the place. She raised a lot of funds. She was dancing. She was doing all of, even at a very critical moment in her life. May her soul rest in peace. So it's really about how much can you really cultivate, even if you don't have enough, but you're enough at that particular point in time. Do you believe it as enough? Sometimes maybe that's what we give ourselves a lot of expectation, like what Grace was saying. We put the bar too high, and when we don't reach it, we then come back to reinforce that we are not good enough, because we haven't reached the bar. But what about all the other bars that you have reached throughout your life? And that takes me to the next one, which is courage. How much courage do we have? Sometimes we don't even understand that you're courageous, you're brave. I mean, COVID came and most of us are still here. What did you do? How did you manage? How did you keep yourself safe? It's really important to bear that in mind. And when we look at humanity, really, sometimes we just say, oh, humanity, but it's not just around the word itself. Humanity is about your kindness, compassion, but kindness to yourself also is human, isn't it? Because if you're not human, you can't even understand that you're vulnerable. So sometimes accepting your vulnerability is also human, to turn around and say, look, I really need help here. I can't do this alone. But sometimes we soldier on and soldier on and soldier on, and we don't get any outcome, but we see working hard and without actually checking. Maybe, look, Kasia has got some idea. Let me just pop in, or let me just check with her. She might help me. So for me, that's humanity. And the final bit really is about justice. It's not just about being fair, but how do we stand for justice for ourselves? How do we really demonstrate justice in our own relationship with our friends, the people we deal with, our children? Are we fair when we put too much pressure on them? Or is my friend fair when she's demanding too much on me? You know, so it's really about those kind of things. And this can really help us as we go along in terms of really managing those 4 concepts: our wisdom and knowledge, you know, the courage that we have, our humanity, and also justice. And justice for humanity, for plants, for life, for the weather, for, you know, for the climate, whatever you do. But sometimes it's just stepping out of that comfort zone to really feel that, yes, and to be vulnerable is important, because that's where you feel really human, that, look, I'm not invincible, I'm not this robot. If a robot, if the battery is dead, they are dead. So so it's really important. Yeah, that's all I want to add, Cassia.
Thank you so much, James. Yeah, vulnerability is such an important. You want to add something, Eva? No. Vulnerability is courage. Eva just said vulnerability is courage, which I agree with. Yeah, I feel like it's such a skill. Maybe not a skill, but it comes with time. You need to be able to. Yeah, it's very courageous to be vulnerable, because it's like the most sensitive part of yourself. But there's such great strength in vulnerability. Yeah. Would anyone else like to add to this answer?
I want to say well done, James. You summarised my words very nicely there. I was in great agreement with what you were saying.
You're very welcome, Asha. Very welcome.
And as well, yeah, I think you consider vulnerability a skill, because I think sometimes you have to mentally put yourself somewhere, and doing that is a skill that you learn and build on and acquire. So, and what was the other thing James was saying about having fear and not sorry fear, sorry, I'll get now. Having courage to, yeah, I have anxiety. So, like, you know, people could kind of consider fear and anxiety as a weakness, but I'm still doing things,
yeah,
even though I feel that way. So
yeah,
I'm brave and courageous all the time, just like I'm sure many of us are, without even realizing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, it's people forget that people with anxiety and people who experience barriers because of their mental health, as one of the examples, yeah, it takes quite a lot. It takes a lot of strength and courage to work on that and go beyond that fear or whatever barrier is preventing you from living normally. I don't like using the word normally, but yeah, it's like the general norm, how a healthy person would experience life, in a way. Yeah. Anne, you've got your hand raised.
I'm trying.
We can't hear you, Anne.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying that just like the previous speakers, is that personally, I'm trying more to be faithful to self and getting to my new normal, that I should focus more on self and allow myself to have the journey of our self-discovery so that I'm able to focus more on my happiness. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
That's it.
Thank you. Eva just put, Eva, do you want to read the quote out loud?
It's one of the quotes I like from Nelson Mandela, the great leader who, he says, "I learned that courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not the one who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear." And that fear conquering could be in any sort of way, whichever small way you can do it. I think people were talking about certain affirmations and things that you tell yourself sometimes. And I personally use that quote quite a bit, especially when I have to do presentations. It's you still feel the butterflies, but it's like, okay, what's the worst that could happen? But as Nyasha said, also it's a skill. It's learning what to do in that moment that then allows you to propel yourself forward. I think getting something that reminds you to be courageous, or getting something that reminds you to celebrate yourself, listening to some music, like doing that one thing that brings you back to the point of happiness or point of ability to do something. It's important to have those things that bring you back to that memory and the good thing. Because I usually think the mind is a very tricky thing that plays tricks on us all the time. As Kasia said before, 90% you deal with the negativity in your mind. So it's a skill. You need to learn how to harness it, contain it a bit. Contain it. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, all very very valid and important points being said. And I think it's good to think about and talk about these things every now and then, or depending on how comfortable you are with it. But I think it's a good reminder, these conversations, to take the time to reflect on what you've done, big or small, and for example, recently I've been working with, because I go to therapy, I've been working with my therapist on a halfway, we called it a mini New Year. So we've just celebrated a mini New Year at the end of June, and we've set with her help, I helped myself set goals and intentions for this new year, and at the same time I was also reflecting on how much and how far I've come for the last 6 months, and before she mentioned it, I was like, 6 months, that just went by so quickly. It felt like no time at all since January. It was so quick, and I was journaling, but I feel like I needed a whole period of reflection and seeing what happened and what the work I've done, and how far I've come to help myself be more healthy. And so yeah, once I started doing the self-reflection, 6 months felt like a whole year in itself. It felt like 12 months. It felt like such a long time, and I was able to identify all the important steps and milestones that I've experienced within those 6 months. So the point I'm just trying to make is how important that is, and self-reflection, and how we might take our actions for granted a lot of the time. So yeah, if anyone does anyone have anything to add? If not, I can pass it back to Eva.
Well, just before Eva takes over, Kasia, it's really important, isn't it? What you've mentioned is about taking stock. And it's not just in therapy, in everything that we do, stock taking is quite important. And also journaling is also important. And this is really what there's a Greek saying that know thyself is really important. Sometimes we really don't know how much we have achieved or how much we haven't and what we still need to work on. And that's the reason why in therapy it's important to stop at a midway point and say, come on, let's celebrate. What have we achieved? What have we worked on? What have you done? You know, that really helped with your issues that you came with for treatment. And what next do we need to focus on? And it's important. And in life, we need to do that. When we celebrate birthdays, I think really it's about telling us that, oh, you come this far. What are you going to do for the next year? And kids, sometimes we want them to be in our good books because of gift and all of those things. But how can we be in somebody else's good book or our own good book, you know, for whatever we achieve? If I were to ask all of us on this call now, before we end, just think of 5 of your weaknesses and 5 strengths and see really which one you're going to do first. So I will ask somebody towards the end. Thank you.
Thank you, James. That'll be an interesting activity.
I've got a lot of weaknesses, James. Yeah. Can I say there's a quote which I want to share with you.
Yes, please.
It's by Booker T. Washington. He said, success is not measured by the heights one attains, but by the obstacles one overcomes in its attainment. What do you think about that?
There's I'm gonna answer with a little quote as well. It's gonna be paraphrased, but it's an analogy that I love using for that, and I think it reflects what you've said really well. I like to think there was a thinker called Carl Jung, and when I was reading a book of his like notes and journals, and in it he mentioned the journey and the highs and the obstacles, like you said. He kind of made the analogy of climbing a mountain.
Yeah.
And that's I like to think about life in that way. Is it's like the climb and the obstacles and the strength you have to, and how much you have to push yourself and test yourself to get to that high. And that high doesn't last very long, because soon after you're going to have to get down the mountain and start going another mountain again, because you can't get from a high to a high. It's the in between. You have to work, you have to go down, and then you have to recharge if you need to, and then go back up. And it's all about the like strengthening your legs and making sure everything's working well and you're strong, and the highs are just a good feeling that lasts for some time, but it's you get the strength from actually doing the work and taking the action and overcoming those obstacles, like you said, Grace.
Yeah, that's right. The process is important than the outcome.
Yeah.
Because that's where we learn a lot. That's where the experience actually is. That's what the storytelling is about, the process. If you were asking Kasia, how did you manage to go up the mountain? She will be telling you, I did this, I did that. She's not going to say, oh, I got there just like that. She will tell you the process. And I think the process is really her learning, her experience. That's where she will acquire the gain, the knowledge and everything. Just like Grace, your job in the past you used to do, it wasn't really what you achieved, but the process of helping those women to deliver and all those little nitty-gritty was your best bit of it. But sometimes the target was always your aim rather than the process to get to the target.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I'll pass it on to Eva then. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that, Kasia. Very great discussion there. And thank you for all your views. So I think to kind of bring to life what we've been talking about, let's watch a short clip and then we'll come back to discuss about it. So let me just put up the clip. Can you see my screen? Okay.
So yesterday was my birthday. And it got me thinking about birthdays, and I realized that we tend to think of birthdays as just these little things that happen every year. And a little thing to me is something fun that we do pretty regularly, but then we think maybe if that thing were removed from our lives, it wouldn't really matter at all. And that's really how we tend to think about birthdays. We tend to think that, well, when I think of my own birthday, it's like I got my cake, got my balloons, got my presents, got the post on my Facebook wall, and none of that is really important, except maybe the post on the Facebook wall. I'm not gonna lie, those are pretty important. But the point is, we tend to think that maybe if we didn't celebrate birthdays, maybe it wouldn't really change anything in our lives. But that's wrong. And that's wrong because we need birthdays in our lives. Or to be more precise, we need the little things in our lives. Now, I think you'll all understand me when I say this. Sometimes it's hard to resist getting overwhelmed by the big things in our lives. And by the big things, I mean all of those milestones that are supposed to shape and define our lives. So going to school, going to college, getting a job, getting married, starting a family, buying a house, all of that American dream kind of stuff. It's hard sometimes to resist just blindly living our lives trying to accomplish all of those big things. But in my experience, that's when you really start feeling miserable about yourself. When you start obsessing about the big things to the point that you forget about the little ones, that's when life really becomes boring. That's when life starts to feel more like a chore than like something that's actually alive. So that moment where life becomes boring, that moment where you really lose touch with yourself, that moment is when you forget about the little things. So, I said all this, and what are these little things, apart from birthdays, of course? So, it really depends. It's different for everyone. It could be anything. It could be watching March Madness. It could be, I don't know, saying hi to that old lady in the elevator every morning. It could be going out with friends. It could be reading a book every once in a while. It really doesn't matter. It's different for everybody. It could be really anything. But the point is, the key to life lies in those little things. The key to life lies in little moments and little gestures that we enjoy and that we celebrate. Because those little things are what make our lives unique, they would make our lives interesting, but most of all, they would make our lives ever so slightly different from all the others who are trying to accomplish the same big things. Now, Robert F. Kennedy, one of my favorite people in the world, Robert F. Kennedy, this guy, once said that if every man and woman in the world made a tiny ripple of hope, that all of those ripples put together would have the strength to change the lives of all. And that's really the idea that I'm trying to get at. That all of the little things in life put together, combined, can have a kind of strength that the big things never will. And the reason for that is that the little things don't just affect us. They affect all the people around us. When you wish someone happy birthday, it doesn't matter if it's your dad, or your friend, or your sister, or even me. You send a little something rippling towards them. You brighten their day. You make their life a tiny, tiny bit better. And that's the power of little things. So when you leave this room, remember to give a thought to the little things. But most of all, remember this guy. And remember to send a tiny ripple of hope to yourself and to the people around you. And then you'll really see just how much of a difference all of the little things put together can make. Thank you.
What do you guys think?
I like the little things important because that's.
Yes, definitely the tiny things, the tiny things. Any other reactions to that?
Well, I didn't hear it at all because it wasn't clear. It wasn't clear. And he wasn't enthusiastic. He didn't put any power in it. So I didn't hear. I didn't hear it. Sorry. I heard one or two words. That's all.
Oh, I do apologize for that, Grace. I will send the clip on the chat, so maybe you can watch it later.
Right, okay.
But he was talking about birthdays and the big celebrations, but
right.
Sometimes we miss the little things.
Yes.
The little things that make us alive. And he was giving examples when you go for a birthday. When you give somebody a gift, you're sending positive ripples towards them. And then he talked about the I think the person who came on, I don't remember his name, was giving a quote about if everybody in the world could send tiny, tiny ripples of goodwill or good measure to people, all those combined can make the world a better place. And so that was his message. But I'll send it on the chat. I do apologize you didn't hear it. Yeah, I know he was a bit, maybe he was just a bit maybe scared of the crowd or something, but his message is really powerful. And he said, when we leave today, what can we think of that we can share? What tiny ripple can you send out to the people around you in whatever form or way to make the world a better place?
Right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
But I will send it through. Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else who wants to comment about the clip? If not, then we do. Oh, sorry, I apologize. Before I bring in James for usually our take home for today, which Grace and I are usually very excited. I think everybody else is usually very excited about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, if nobody else has something, I'm going to bring in Emeka, who wants to talk about the work that he's doing. So we'll just give him 5 minutes of your time. And then after Emeka finishes, we'll have James, and hopefully we should be done by about 1 o'clock. So Emeka, over to you.
Yeah, hello everybody.
Hello.
Yeah, can you see me?
Yeah.
Yeah, hi. I wanted to talk to you about the Macmillan Cancer Education Project. I've been talking about it in groups. I work for Rushmore Healthy Living, which is a not-for-profit organization that has to do with working with disadvantaged people to improve their quality of lives, mainly in the BAME communities, but it's also inclusive also. They tackle issues like obesity, cancer, and depression, anxiety, and also loneliness, other mental health issues. They deal with they are able to tackle these issues through activities that they involve in communities, like Pilates, exercises, every other thing to help people with mental health issues they are tackling. And also again with other things like obesity, like I mentioned, and cancer. However, I'm involved in the Macmillan Cancer Education Project. I'm a Cancer Champion Support Officer. The Macmillan Cancer Education Project has been running since 2017. It focuses mainly in South Reading and West Berkshire. Its main job is mainly to promote cancer awareness in the communities, and also other activities that have to do with voluntary recruitment and management, information and signposting, promoting the work of cancer champions, cancer awareness and education, and training cancer champions. And also again, educating communities in regards to early diagnosis and screening programs. And also again, trying to link up patients and carers with other support they can get in communities. That has to do with finances, loneliness, and also again, other health professionals they can speak to. And at the moment, we are looking for volunteers that want to be part of the project, and also to be trained to become cancer champions. That's basically it. And if you're really interested, I can send you my details, my email details, and you can email me if you're interested, and then we'll get back to you in regards to when there will be training, and also again when they can have our meetings to become part of the project and be trained to become cancer champions. And yeah, also I forgot to mention, the cancer project focuses mainly on identifying and addressing health inequalities among seldom groups in accessing cancer services in the health sector. And also again, integrating with communities to understand the barriers that affect them not being able to have access to health services for cancer services. This is mainly in the BAME communities, Black, Asian, and minority ethnic groups. But at the same, like I mentioned, it's also inclusive. And with training of cancer champions, they're able to be linked with GPs and PCNs in different communities in South Reading and West Berkshire. And that way, they'll be able to educate them about the services being rendered, and also again, how they can get support and access to services through health professionals. And also again, like I mentioned, educating other communities in regards to why they should go for early diagnosis and for proper checkups. Because with the work of cancer champions, they're able to have links with communities. And that way, they are able to integrate to understand issues that might affect certain communities not having access based on cultural or religious reasons or anything at all. So it would be good if anybody is interested, like I mentioned, if they're interested in volunteering. I'm going to put my details in the chat box. So if you're really interested, you can send me an email. Like I mentioned, we'll get back to you when we'll have our training, and also again, online training and skills, and we'll get back to you. That's it.
Thank you for that, Emeka, and great work that you're doing. Does anybody have any questions for Emeka at all? No, that's fine. Yeah. So please, Emeka, share your details on the chat, and hopefully if anybody wants to join or get some more information, they can get in touch with you. So James, over to you, please.
Thank you, Eva. And to start with, I would like to go over the 2 questions. So not in any order, but if you could, please share with us, how was it with the 2 questions? Which of those questions was difficult for you to list 5 weaknesses and 5 strengths? So I just want to hear from 1 or 2 or 3 people, please. Because it's really important to have a go at some of these things that sometimes we just deprioritize them, but they're really quite important to us. And that's what we've been really talking about for most of what we discussed today, because we do focus on things that perhaps we don't need to focus on. So how did you do, anybody?
Okay, I'll start.
All right, Nasha, thank you.
So my 5 strengths are that I am intuitive. I'm able to help others as well as help myself. I am able to be in tune with myself by writing. I have a good level of self-awareness. And I am open-minded.
Okay. That's really, really, really good, Nasha. But was that easy for you?
In comparison to how it has been before, if you asked me this question about 5 or 6 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to answer.
Yeah. It can be really extremely difficult, and we have so much strength, and the focus is really on the weaknesses, because I don't know, I mean, a lot of work has been done on this psychologically, but it's really about how we perceive ourselves in terms of when they ask us, what are your weaknesses? And it's so quick to label them. And that's judgment is there all the time. Yeah. Did I hear somebody else want to say something before we go on? Well, my tips today really...
Can I say something?
Yes, Grace, yes.
Yeah, my strength, one of them or two is I'm sociable. I go forward and make friends, say hello, that sort of thing. I'm caring, I'm compassionate, and I'm reliable. Yes, and what else? You can trust me. If I say I'm coming, I'm coming. That sort of thing. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, it's really important for us to have a common approach in our lives when we sit down and really come up with some of our strengths rather than the weaknesses, because the weaknesses are something you can really improve on. Just like climbing a mountain, you will come back and say, oh, the next time I will reach faster than the first one. You will learn from your mistakes. So they are not you, they are just something that you need to improve on. Tips today, really, I'm not going to just volunteer tips today. I really want to bring some questions, and I would like these answers if next when we meet. So my first question really will be, I like who I am. Okay, I want you to write it. I like who I am. Do you strongly agree with that, or is there any disagreement in that? That's you asking yourself. I like who I am. Do you agree with it yourself, or do you strongly disagree? So that's the first question. The second bit will be, I think the world is a good place. So you can argue, is it true by your own standard? It's not by me. This question needs to be answered from your own perspective. And we look at those answers. Maybe they will go into our pool next time when we meet. And the third one is, I have positive effect on others. Do you have positive effect on others? Could be one or two people. You don't need to have a whole community to impact. But it's really about you. Do you have positive effect on others? And if you agree, say I agree. If you don't agree, say I don't agree. And you can probably come up with your own answers. And the fourth one is, my life is too busy and I have time for myself. So it's really important to bear that in mind. I'm so busy, but do I have time, to myself? Do I look after myself, even though I'm so busy? Busy caring for others, but do I have time to look after myself? So it's really important. And that's really a beautiful tip to take as well, in terms of how do you deprioritize certain people? Where do you fix your boundaries? Are you one of those people that pushes your own boundaries to a limit? So it's really important. And the final question number 5 is, I have a sense of meaning and purpose in my life. Sense of meaning and purpose in my life. What do you mean by that? How will you tell me that this is my own sense of meaning, purpose? Could be, your achievement, the books you've written, the story you've told, coming here and supporting, sharing, and just being a good friend, just being a reliable friend, or just even coming here and presenting, does that give a meaning? So those are the 5 kind of questions in the form of my tips. And I think it's really important for us to continue to celebrate ourselves. And I think we had on Sunday how many stories we had, people coming and telling their stories. They came to this country and they were even calling the fog double cloud, but it was still good for them, And have a lady who came with flip-flops from Africa and landed here in winter. You can imagine how difficult that was for her. This is another story. And then she was all over the place and she was asking for support here and there. Today, she's now able to understand. She can celebrate her experience, because experiences are things that we don't normally stop and look at our storyline. What are the things in our storyline? Most of the things that we've normally focus on is those bad memories. So it's really important to really sum up all of this with happy memories. So tell your own story to yourself and pick out the happy memories, and really understand how was that for you when you felt that way, rather than the bad or sad memories, So let's really go through that and see. We've seen what Mo Farah has been telling us, isn't it, in terms of his own story. Imagine, we never knew about him, about those things, but this is a guy who went to the top of his own career, made a lot of money, but also contact and popularity and importance and significance in our society now. He's talking about a history that perhaps most people will like to look at, wow, you know, and there are a lot of people who probably started that way, including some of us here, in terms of how we came here, what life was, you know, but to date, perhaps you might look back and say, but look what I've been able to at least go through. So it's the process, it's not the outcome. Even when you go for a walk, it's not about, I'm going to do 5, 10 meters or 10K or 10,000 steps. It's not about the step, but how were you taking those steps? Did you watch the birds flying? Did you look at the bright sky? Did you look at the trees? So the process is really quite important. So on that note, Eva, thank you so much for bringing us together, and we catch up again next week.
Thank you very much, everybody, and glad to see and enjoy the sunshine. I hear it's going to be very hot on Sunday. I can see Nyasha has something she wants to say before we go.
Sorry, no, I missed one of the questions. I've only got 4.
Oh.
Okay, the 5th one is, I have a sense of meaning and purpose in my life.
I got that one. I'm not sure which I've got. Do you like yourself? Is the world a good place? I'm so busy, but do I have time to look after myself?
Okay, the one you missed, Nyasha, is I have positive effect on others. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Kasia, I will send them to you.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Vince.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Bye-bye. Have a lovely week, and stay hydrated. The weather is too hot.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye. God bless.
Where were you, Grace, on Sunday?
Well, I was up north in Newcastle.
Oh,
yeah.
I thought I was going to see you in person.
Well, you know, one day you see me in person.
Okay, then, no problem.
To go for a graduation for, you know, this month, July, I've got 3 graduations. All great nieces and birthdays. Every day of the month of July, it's something else. Birthdays, and graduation and all that. So, sorry, I was up north. I would have come.
Okay, then, no problem.
Newcastle, yes.
Okay, then.
Next time, God willing, I'll be there.
I hope so, yeah. Okay, then. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you
God
very
bless.
much. And celebrate.
Okay, thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.